Hi, folks. This is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. You know, there's so many things that come into play when you start the new fishing season. And there's a few things that I want to pass on to you today. Number one is, I think one of the most important things that we have to think about when we're going fishing is what depth are these fish going to most likely be at? And if they're at that depth, how can we as a fisherman be able to reach them at that depth? And this is one of the concerns I think that is really a big part of fishing right now, is knowing how to fish whatever depth that we want to go. In other words, if those fish are, we've talked about with trout fishing, it's important that right now when the water's cold and in higher levels, that you have to get your lure down near the bottom. If it isn't on the bottom, the fish probably aren't going to hit it. And that includes fish that are going to be feeding on nymphs, on all kinds of aquatic food, and even if you were giving them live bait to try to eat, you need to have that be down, just bumping along the bottom. It's important. So how do you do that? You have to select lines and tackle that are going to enable you to cast and be able to allow your bait to go down to the bottom. This is really critical. And when you open it up now to other species like pike and walleyes and bass and so forth, again, you have to know what depth that you want to, that you think you're going to find them. And if they're right on the surface, well, you can use just about anything. And if they're in the upper ranges of the water, it's easy to reach them that way. But if they're down deep, if they're down a certain depth, you have to select a lure that's going to go down to that depth. For example, if you use a spinner bait, you have to know what weight you want to use. Any weight is going to sink, but once that starts spinning, it's going to stay at pretty much the level of what you started to fish it at. And it's the same with bucktail jigs, what I've recommended so much. They're going to go down deep if you allow them to sink before you start your retrieve. And in the case of artificial crankbaits, we talk about the lips. And the lips on the front of those baits, the plastic lips, are designed to do a certain thing, to take them to a certain depth and to make that bait wiggle in a certain way. But you have to select one of those baits that's going to go, and the baits will tell you on the package what depth they're designed to be fished. For example, if it says it will go down to 12 feet, you know that you can fish in water that's that deep and still get it down there where those fish are probably going to be in colder water. And this is a huge, important part of fishing to me, is knowing how to fish the proper depth. And it encompasses so many different aspects. In other words, the type of line that you use, as I mentioned in the beginning here, is critical. Certain lines naturally float and others will tend to sink. With fly fishing, you can actually get fly lines with either a certain section of them that will allow it to sink down, or the whole line will sink on its own. And that's really critical for fishing the ponds or the lakes for trout in the early part of the year. But you want to get down deep where they're going to be, and the sinking fly lines will help you do that. And when we're talking about other lines with spinning reels, monofilament tends to float, but if you select fluorocarbon line, that line will naturally sink, and that can make a big difference with the type of lures that you decide to use. So keep that in mind, folks. That depth is a crucial part of fishing, and knowing how to fish depths is critical in your arsenal of knowledge that you need to be a good fisherman. Until next time, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.